Hello everyone, this episode will be about Microsoft Patch Tuesday for January 2022. Traditionally, I will use my open source Vulristics tool for analysis. This time I didn't make any change to how connectors work. The report generation worked correctly on the first try. Python 3.8, Vulristics Py, report type MS-Patch-Tuesday, MS-PT year 2022, MS-PT month January, rewrite flag true. The only thing I have improved is the detection of types of vulnerabilities and vulnerable products. Unknown vulnerability type was for 2 vulnerabilities. So I added the elevation of privilege and cross-site scripting spelling options. I added detections for 13 products and 19 Windows components. I also corrected the method for sorting vulnerabilities with the same Vulristics score. Previously, such vulnerabilities were sorted by CVE ID. Now they are sorted by vulnerability type and product. This allows you to see the clusters of similar vulnerabilities. Each time I rebuild the report with the same command, but without recollecting the data. Python 3.8 Vulristics Py, report type MS-Patch-Tuesday, MS-PT year 2022, MS-PT month January, rewrite flag false. The link to the full report is available in the blog post. Let's now look at the report. There are 97 vulnerabilities in total. If we only look at CVSS, critical 6, high 63, medium 28, low 0. But according to my Vulristics vulnerability score, everything is not so critical. Urgent 0, critical 1, high 34, medium 62, low 0. The only critical vulnerability became so much after the publication of Patch Tuesday. Elevation of privilege in Windows Win32k, CVE 2022 218.82. A local authenticated attacker could gain elevated local system or administrator privileges through a vulnerability in the Win32k sys driver. Exploitation in the wild is mentioned at Microsoft. None of the vulnerability management vendors mentioned this vulnerability in their reviews. Now let's see the high vulnerabilities. Remote code execution in HTTP protocol stack, CVE 2022 218.07. This vulnerability is highlighted by all VM vendors, except for some reason Rapid7. To exploit this vulnerability, an unauthenticated attacker could send a specially crafted packet to a vulnerable server utilizing the HTTP protocol stack, HTTP sys, to process packets. No user interaction, no privilege required. Microsoft warns that this flaw is considered wormable and has a flag exploitation more likely. According to the advisory, Windows Server 2019 and Windows 10 version 18.09 do not have the HTTP trailer support feature enabled by default. However, this mitigation does not apply to other affected versions of Windows. While this is definitely more server-centric vulnerability, remember that Windows clients can also run http.sys, so all affected versions are affected by this bug. Remote code execution in remote procedure call runtime, CVE 2022 219.22. Microsoft Remote Procedure Call (RPC) defines a powerful technology for creating distributed client-server programs. The RPC runtime stubs and libraries manage most of the processes related to network protocols and communication. The authenticated attacker with non-admin credentials could take advantage of this vulnerability to execute malicious code through the RPC runtime. It looks like an interesting vulnerability for lateral movement in infrastructure, but for some reason VM vendors ignored this vulnerability. Remote code execution in Microsoft Exchange, CVE 2022-219-69, CVE 2022-218-46, and CVE 2022-218-55. 3 vulnerabilities with the same severity level. Exchange vulnerabilities are always interesting because Exchange servers are usually accessible from the internet, but this time these vulnerabilities are less critical. They cannot be exploited directly over the public internet. Attackers need to be adjacent to the target system in terms of network topology. Remote code execution in Windows Remote Desktop Client, CVE 2022-218-50, CVE 2022-218-51, and remote code execution in Windows Remote Desktop Protocol, CVE 2022-218-93. For all CVEs, an attacker would need to convince a user on an affected version of the remote desktop client to connect to a malicious RDP server. Remote code execution in Windows IKE extension, CVE 2022-218-49. Internet Key Exchange is a protocol used to set up a security association SA in the IPsec protocol suite. While at this time the details of this vulnerability are limited, a remote attacker could trigger multiple vulnerabilities when the IPsec service is running on the Windows system without being authenticated. I would also like to draw attention to these vulnerabilities. Remote code execution in Microsoft SharePoint, CVE 2022-218-37. An attacker could use this vulnerability to gain access to the domain and could perform remote code execution on the SharePoint server to elevate themselves to SharePoint admin. And remote code execution in Microsoft Office, CVE 2022-218-40, and remote code execution in Microsoft Word, CVE 2022-218-42. Exploitation would require social engineering to entice a victim to open an attachment or visit a malicious website. Thankfully, the Windows preview pane is not a vector for this attack. And that's it for today. Please subscribe and leave your comments. Bye.